When you think about the Beatles, every song feels like a piece of history. Revolutionary, experimental, and full of the youthful energy that changed music forever. But even among their vast catalog of timeless songs, there was one that John Lennon himself believed would stand the test of time. A song so powerful in its simplicity that Lennon once said, "People will still be singing that one 100 years from now." That song was Yesterday.
All my troubles seem so far away.
It's hard to imagine now, but when Yesterday was first recorded in 1965, it didn't sound like the Beatles at all. There were no harmonies, no wild guitar riffs, no pounding drums. Just Paul McCartney, sitting alone with his acoustic guitar, accompanied by a gentle string quartet. It was intimate, melancholy, and hauntingly beautiful, unlike anything the band had ever released before. For John Lennon, it was both strange and mesmerizing. He admired Paul's craftsmanship, but at the same time, Yesterday felt so far removed from the rebellious energy that had defined the group. Still, Lennon couldn't deny it. McCartney had written something extraordinary, something that would live far beyond its era. The story behind Yesterday is almost mythical. Paul claimed the melody came to him in a dream. He woke up one morning with the tune fully formed in his head, sat at a piano, and played it, thinking he must have unconsciously stolen it from another song. For weeks, he went around asking friends, "Have you ever heard this before?" No one had. The melody was his, and it would become one of the most enduring in modern music history. John Lennon was fascinated by that. He often said that McCartney had a natural gift for melody, something Lennon didn't have in the same effortless way. And while John was more drawn to songs that expressed conflict, rebellion, or surreal imagination, Yesterday spoke to something universal: heartbreak, regret, and the passage of time. It was soft, but it hit hard. At first, though, Yesterday didn't feel like a Beatles song to anyone, not even to the Beatles themselves. George Harrison and Ringo Starr didn't play a note on it. John Lennon wasn't involved in the writing or the arrangement. Producer George Martin suggested adding a string quartet, and the final version ended up being a solo McCartney recording released under the Beatles' name. John later joked that Paul's song was so good it didn't need us. But beneath that humor was a touch of truth. Yesterday marked a turning point in the band's dynamic. It was the moment when Paul's growing independence as a songwriter began to outshine the Lennon-McCartney partnership. Still, Lennon respected it. He might have been the voice of the band's edge and rebellion, but he knew brilliance when he heard it. Years later, when asked which Beatles songs would survive the test of time, Lennon didn't hesitate. Yesterday, that one will be around for 100 years. And he was right. More than half a century later, Yesterday remains one of the most covered songs in music history. Performed by everyone from Frank Sinatra to Ray Charles, from Elvis Presley to Marvin Gaye. Even orchestras, choirs, and jazz bands around the world have embraced it. There's something about the melody, so delicate, so simple, that touches people regardless of generation or genre. John understood that timelessness. He often said that great music wasn't about complexity or production, it was about emotion. And in Yesterday, Paul had captured something pure: the ache of loss, the nostalgia of memory, and the quiet pain of growing older. But Lennon's praise was also layered with self-awareness. He once admitted that Yesterday was the kind of song he couldn't have written, not because he lacked skill, but because it required a certain vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to show. While Paul poured his heart into melodies about love and longing, John preferred to write from irony, intellect, and confrontation. That contrast defined the Beatles' chemistry, and also their tension. McCartney's melodic optimism balanced Lennon's raw realism. But songs like Yesterday reminded John that Paul could express emotion in a way that didn't need rebellion. It needed honesty. In later interviews, Lennon reflected on that difference with a mix of admiration and frustration. He said, "Paul was always the one for the pretty tunes. I liked rock and roll, but he had this thing, that melodic thing, that you just couldn't deny." Even when their friendship grew distant, even when creative differences turned into rivalry, Lennon never denied Paul's gift. He even told one journalist in the 1970s that Yesterday was one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and that's Paul, completely. There was no jealousy in his voice that time, just respect. In truth, Lennon's prediction that yesterday would last a century wasn't an exaggeration. It was foresight. The song has outlived not only the Beatles era, but every wave of musical change that followed, from the psychedelic 60s to grunge, hip-hop, and modern pop. Yesterday remains untouched, untarnished, and instantly recognizable. Its simplicity is its power. Just a few chords, a wistful melody, and a voice that sounds like it's remembering something it can never have back. No matter where or when you hear it, it feels deeply human. That, more than anything, is what John Lennon admired about it. The universality that no innovation or production could ever replicate. And maybe that's the irony of it all. The man who wrote Imagine, a song about unity and timeless ideals, once said that Paul's Yesterday would last 100 years, two different visions of eternity, from two sides of the same creative coin. But Lennon wasn't wrong. Even now, decades after both men are gone, Yesterday continues to play. In movies, on radio stations, in cafes, at weddings, funerals, and quiet nights alone. It's part of the emotional fabric of the world. A simple tune born from a dream, carried by one man's voice, and praised by another who understood what true immortality in music meant. As John Lennon once said, "It will be sung forever, because people will always feel that way," and he was right. Yesterday still lives on, and 100 years later, it probably still will.